One of my favorite things about Jimi Hendrix is when he plays those really out there sounding chords. Hey, I'm Lee from Play Guitar Academy. I help frustrated guitar players get back to getting better at the guitar. I'm very happy you're here today. This week I got a series all about Jimi Hendrix and his very cool chord and rhythm work. And this is the second video of the series, and I take a look more of the advanced chords that he plays and how he moved them around the fretboard. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, but before we do, could you take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell? That way we can stay connected. All right, let's go ahead and play some guitar. The next thing that we talked about this weekend to really dive into Hendrix's chord playing is some advanced chord movement. The way that Jimi moved chords around was really different. It was very jazzy. He would take chords and slide them in places that chords might never want to be. and he did it with such conviction and was so confident in his playing that they really sounded wonderful. Used a lot of chromatic movement in the way he took chords around, especially some chords that have some different types of sounds. Listen to Wind Cried Mary. Those are chords that have a lot of chromatic movement. Bop, bop, bop. Little Wing did that as well, walking up to the 5 chord in Little Wing before resolving it to the 1 chord. He would go 4, sharp 4, 5. Just took a whole voicing of a chord, bop, 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 like that. So a lot of the ways that he played chords and did songwriting was really ahead of his time for rock music. He was taking some of these ideas from other styles of music that he was listening to. Little Wing was one of those too. But one of the chords that I want to talk about is the sus2 chord. And the sus2 chord is, you think of it, you hear sometimes people say a sus9 chord or a sus2 chord. And the operative note in a sus2 or sus9 chord is the same. So we're going to talk about the sus2 chord in the key of A here. So if you take a bar chord, just a regular A bar chord at the 5th fret, and play it on the top 4 strings, voice it that way. To make this a add 9 chord, you would take your pinky and you would go from your first finger, which is the root of the chord, the A, and you would put your pinky 2 frets above that. If you remember from whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, the 2nd degree of the major scale is a whole step above the root. So we've got your first finger up 2 frets, we've got our 2nd, or a 9 chord. Now generally when you deal with extensions, as long as your chord has its functioning notes, those get reserved for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When you go on to 9ths and 11ths and 13ths, those are notes that are more about color tones and not the functioning of the way the chord functions, but ways of decorating the chord more. So I just added the note that's the 9th. The 2nd and the 9th are the same thing. It's just the next octave up. So that's the sound right there. It's a really neat sound. But Hendrix didn't do this. He didn't use the note on the G string. He didn't use the 3rd of the chord. He removed that. And basically we just turned that note, which is the 3rd, and moved it back 2. To make it a 9th. So if we took that 3rd, move it back 2 in the key of A, we get a B note, which is the same as this B note up here. So what I'm going to do is put this B note on the E string high, keep my first finger on the B string on the 5th fret, which is the E, play the root of the chord A on the D string, and not play anything on the G string. This is called a sus2 chord. We've taken the we've taken the third and lowered it down to a 2. So this chord doesn't have a happy sound or a sad sound. It is just a sound. It's a chord that has kind of a strong fifth in it, like a power chord, and then a ninth on it, or a second on the top. So it's got a neat sound to it. And what Jimmy would do is he would move this chord around a lot. Try it in different places. He might go just up whole steps. And use it kind of like an embellished chord. An embellishment, when we do these other things, if you've got it, say you have an A, and it lasts for a long time, as an effect. Wanted to see what other people thought about this, and I found a really good blog post from Scott Marano, and this was for Guitar World, where he talks about the sus2 chord, and I will put that in the show notes. And the last thing in our advanced chord movement section, the way he moved chords around, was his economy of movement. And what I'm talking about with economy of movement is going back to some of the things we talked about earlier about is he's so busy with what he's singing and playing and lead guitar that he wasn't able a lot of times to play a nice big huge voicing, and he may not have wanted to because he used a lot of fuzz guitar. And if you've ever played with a fuzz pedal and tried to play just a regular bar major chord, it doesn't sound that great. There's some notes that are fighting each other when you have that much distortion. And so you would see, especially if you would see, I looked at a live video for Freedom, and I looked at Foxy Lady, and I went through a bunch of the different ones, and I started noticing something, Purple Haze, all of those things, that he would rarely strum a whole chord. He would hit the bass note and then hit the two highest strings. Something like that. He was rarely playing the whole chord at one time. And I think a lot of that had to do with it didn't sound good to his ear with all of the distortion that was there. So he was fragmenting chords a lot. And a lot of times, the chord that we're going to get into next, he would have to voice that in different places because of the runs that he was working on as well. So making chords work with fuzz, never playing the big all 6 strings voicings, and usually 2 or 3 notes at a time, or getting the bass note and then the rest of the chords separated so they're not fighting each other for that space when you have a really distorted sound, is a really, really, really big part of his sound. So really interesting stuff. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Just for making it all the way to the end of this video, I've got a very cool gift for you. It's my free blues soloing course. It's called Get Your Blues Solos Under Control. This gives you the right foundations to move your lead guitar playing forward fast. It's at freeblueslesson.com, but you can also find that in the description below. Thanks again for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you on the next video.